Hi there, welcome back to the Art of Business English. Here we have a little bit of a live session today in the school here in Barcelona. Now, this week, as I mentioned in last week's podcast episode, I'm going to be focusing this episode on a bit of productivity. Basically, at the moment, I'm taking a course on productivity by a very interesting entrepreneur who's got a great company. His name is Shane McGlaw, and he is the CEO of Thrive Themes, which is a fantastic product which I personally use for all of my websites. And he's got a course called Focus and Action, which I took and I have been taking since the start of the year. And there are a couple of little things which he's enlightened me to, which I have found quite interesting. And I really want to share it with you guys, my audience, because I think it's something that you should be aware of, and I think it's something that we can all benefit from. So basically today, what I want to talk about is some of the things that are actually occupying our time, which we don't really realize, okay? And this, I feel, is really impacting negatively on our productivity and our ability to work well and really to be present with our family, which is quite sad and something I'm starting to feel more and more passionate about. And I have started to share this with some of my younger students who are, at university, and some of my younger students, they're spending a lot of time, or a lot of their time wasting it on particularly social media such as Instagram. So what I want to do today is I'm going to show you, if you've got an iPhone, I'm going to show you how you can monitor your behavior and the use of your device, which is, I'm sure you'll notice that it's impacting negatively. So what we're going to be looking at today is how we can check out screen time, which is the use of how much time you spend looking at your screen. Some of the negative things that our studies have found, which can basically impact on our productivity, and maybe some of the ways which we can be better and more productive and avoid interruptions. Okay, so let's start by looking at this famous and newly implemented screen time. Okay, so basically if you look at your phone, what you're going to find is that under the settings, okay, so you go to settings and you look just under the notifications, there is a section called screen time, okay, and from here, if you haven't already activated it, you'll need to activate it, okay? And what it does is it shows you how much time you spend with your screen on, okay, and unlocked, and that's in a 24-hour period, and what applications you're using most. So once you've activated screen time, you'll get a summary, but then you can actually select the device that you want, and it's divided into two sections, today or the last 7 days. And then there are categories which are basically productivity, reading and reference, entertainment, and social media and things like that. For example, today I've used my phone for 24 minutes and I've spent 9 minutes of those on productivity, 6 minutes of reading, and 3 minutes on entertainment. And then it actually shows you the most used apps in order, okay? You can also flip over to the last 7 days. Now on my phone, I've used my phone for 1 hour and 51 minutes on average in the past 7 days, which is pretty good. That's per day. And what you'll notice as well is that the top most used app of my phone is Google Maps. So in fact, probably can see that a lot of the time, like it says I've used my phone for 2.5 hours, or 2 hours, sorry, on Google Maps. So that was obviously when I was driving. I needed to go some places and I had the maps open. So that's not really wasting time on my phone. I'm actually using it for a productive purpose. Now the next app is WhatsApp, okay? Obviously I'm sure that most of you are going to be having WhatsApp quite high up on the list. And you'll notice that a lot of my apps are, Chrome, BBC News, email, and then down is YouTube. So you do get an idea of how many hours you've spent on these apps over the last 7 days, okay? Now, when we say the last 7 days, we're talking about the whole 24-hour period of a day. So you need to keep that in mind. Once you start to analyze these statistics, you're going to see that, you need to sleep for 8 hours a day. So you don't have your phone when you're sleeping. There's no screen time on. So then the hours that you're using your phone are probably going to be limited to a maximum of about, the possible time that you could use your phone. I would say the maximum time you could use your phone in a day would be 10 hours maybe. You have to sleep, you have to drive, you have to work. You can't just be using your phone all the time. But what you're going to see is that, and particularly with some of my students, the times that they are spending on their phone a day are quite astronomical. The next section you'll see is pickups, and on average, I've picked up my phone 50 times per day. And then you can see first used app after pickup, and for me it's been WhatsApp, okay? So, and then the phone, and then settings, and then Skype. And then the last section is notifications. So you can see how many notifications you get in a week, and then they get more or less how many notifications per day, and which apps are giving you the most notifications, and how many times you receive those notifications. So that is basically the app, and then we can start analyzing the data, okay? So what has been scary for me is that I've seen some of my students and colleagues, and they've been using their phone on average, okay, so some days less, some days more. The good students, about 3.5 hours a day on average, and the bad students, some of them up to 7.5 hours a day of screen time. So if we consider 7.5 hours to 8 hours a day a full working day, on average, some of my students are spending a whole day staring at their phone. Then the next thing that's quite shocking is if you look at the apps, a lot of them are spending a day, 2 hours a day on just looking at Instagram. And when you look at that over a week, I think the worst student had spent 14 hours in a week looking at Instagram. And suddenly you think to yourself, wow, in a 7-day period, you've spent a whole day of you being awake, staring at Instagram and looking at Instagram. So then you start to realize, well, that must be having a massive negative impact on my productivity. Imagine if you spend a whole day. So really, this person has only worked or been productive 6 days out of 7 because they've spent a whole day staring at Instagram. And then when they realize that, they suddenly think to themselves, wow, this could be a problem. But because you don't look at Instagram for 14 hours straight, you don't realize how much time you're wasting on the app. Okay? So what is the other implication? Well, because you are picking up your phone all the time, some of my students had, on average, in a week, I think it was 700 pickups or things like that. So once we started to think about how many hours they could actually be awake to pick up their phone, and we removed all the sleeping hours and the hours of travel, the hours that they're at work or in class or whatever, literally we did the math, average math, and some of them were picking up their phones on average every 8 minutes. So the average is between about 8 and 12 minutes. So suddenly you're realizing that people are breaking up their train of thought. They're destroying their ability to concentrate because they're constantly, without realizing it, picking up their phone. And this is what is making us as humans struggle with productivity and having this sensation of, I'm always busy. Oh, I'm terribly busy. I'm so busy. Because what's actually happening is the device in our hands has been engineered specifically to capture and retain our attention. Why? Well, it's quite logical, isn't it? If Facebook, Instagram, Google, the big boys, they generate revenue from you clicking on ads that they serve up in the feeds. So the more time you spend looking at screens, the more probability they have to sell advertising space. So they want you there. In the past, you could watch television. Back in the old days when we used to watch television and not Netflix. And that's another thing. Netflix is just as bad. Many of my students spend 2 hours a day watching Netflix. So suddenly what you're seeing is a transformation or a transition from traditional media like television, okay, I mean, many of my students don't watch television anymore, they watch Netflix. So the television advertising space suddenly becomes irrelevant. So where are advertisers now moving to? Social media and online platforms, because that's where people are spending the most time. Another thing is, if you're spending a lot of time on Instagram, it can have a negative effect on the way you perceive yourself. So not only are you becoming less productive, okay, but suddenly you are spending time looking at other people and thinking about how they are, and wow, maybe you're not valuing who you are as a person because you're comparing yourself constantly to other people. So there are studies that show that Instagram is having a negative effect on the perception of how teenagers perceive themselves, okay, especially teenage girls. So it's quite, and it's something that's not well understood or well controlled. And another issue is that parents are unaware of how much time the younger generation is spending on their phones, and parents are in fact just as addicted, but in different ways. Maybe they use different apps, but they're still addicted to Candy Crush, maybe not Instagram, but Facebook, okay? And maybe people are also reading things that they think are productive and helping them, but actually they're not. I mean, maybe you just spend hours reading the news, but how many articles do you actually remember? Is that really benefiting you? Is it improving your productivity? So then parents are singing this song of, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, I'm so busy. And what's actually happened is they're in the same loop or in the same trap as their kids. And you'll also notice that this means that people are not present in their lives because they're too busy being attached to their devices. And you can see it. For example, people think that we can multitask, and in fact, we can't multitask. We have to stop and start task. And this, as I mentioned previously, this constant picking up of your phone is breaking up your ability to concentrate and be productive. But it's also not allowing you to be present with those around you. For example, if you want someone to say yes to something, how many times, if someone's like reading something on their phone and you say, can I do this? Yeah. I mean, they're not actually listening to you. They're immersed in what they're doing, because it's very difficult for people to do two things at the same time productively. You can't really do it. What you need to do is actually stop focusing on one thing and then move your attention to the other thing. So this constant flip between your phone and the task at hand is having a detrimental effect on people's productivity. So that is what I would like people to become aware of today. It's quite interesting once you start to discuss it with your friends and get them to show you how much time they spend on their phones. And I think the solutions to this are quite simple. You need to turn off all of your notifications. Basically, I have eliminated all of my notifications except for the most important ones. I've even limited my email notifications because I only check my email now twice a day, because it's very annoying and it's stopping me from really getting in and focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing if you're constantly popping up emails. And what you'll actually notice is that when you make this transition, you don't miss email. It's not the end of the world if you don't reply instantly to people's emails. Another thing is to avoid WhatsApp. I mean, WhatsApp at work, I mean, how many groups are you in? How many WhatsApp groups have you got? If you've got a smartwatch, I mean, I have a smartwatch, I use it for sport, but my phone is permanently on no molestar or the no notification setting. You'll see that there's a little moon, because if I don't have the notifications turned off or silenced, my wrist is constantly vibrating and I find it extremely frustrating. So basically, turning off as many notifications as you can is a great start, and then really avoiding having your phone around you or with you when you're trying to do blocks of work. I'm not saying to people that they should stop using Instagram or social media because maybe you like to follow different people, their different trends, you like design or fashion or photography. That's fantastic. But what we need to avoid is this constant jump, switching between tasks. So when you want to do some serious work, you need to lock yourself into a space that is conducive to work. You need to manage that space, remove all of the notifications, remove all of the distractions, and really get on and work. And then if you are spending, upwards of 6 or 7 hours a week on a certain application, then maybe you should think about that and really ask yourself the question, what value is it really offering me? Because if I read a book about something, maybe I would be equally entertained and I'd learn something and it would benefit me a lot more. Okay, so that's my rant for this week's episode. I found it very interesting, some of the things that have been listed on this course, which I have taken. And I think a lot of people could benefit from putting their phone away or putting their phone down, turning off notifications, and spending more time in the present with the people around them. There are some interesting studies that show even having your phone off but on the table, it puts a barrier between you and the people you're speaking to. It instantly puts people's attention on the phone. So, just remember this. Your phone has, and the apps in it, have been specifically engineered to grab your attention. People want you using their apps. The phone companies want you using their devices. So there are a lot of very smart people who are hacking our minds. Okay, they're hackers for a reason. Okay, they understand what they can do to try and circumvent and get into our minds and get our attention focused on them. So just be aware of that. Okay, I liken it to smoking. 50 years ago, half of the population smoked and people thought it was normal and okay to smoke. Now, obviously we know that smoking is terribly addictive and bad for your health. And I think that it's possible that in the future we may see some transformations or transitions in people's understanding and behavior towards mobile phone use. It is a useful tool in many ways, but there are many, many, many other uses which are unproductive, not good for your self-belief or the way you see yourself. And they're they're just a waste of your time. You could be doing much more productive things with your life and benefiting from many other things, like spending time with your family, being outside, getting into nature, enjoying your life. Okay, people, well, that's my little rant for today, and I really would like your comments about that. I'd love to get some feedback. If you do have any questions about how you can become a bit more productive and some of the ways that you can help clear up your workspace so that it's a more distraction-free environment, then let me know. I've got a few ideas I can share with you and be more than happy to share those with you. And if you are interested in Shane's course, then I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's a good course, and I've found it very interesting and quite helpful, and a good way to start my year off with a productivity mindset. So that's it for me now, guys. Make sure you have a great week, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope this episode has been insightful and thought-provoking. So take care, and bye for now.